This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Get a huge discount on a 2-year plan using the code KINGK at checkout. Stay tuned for more details. You know, sometimes things just don't work out the way you expect them to. I expected to be writing that Super Mario 3D World is bland, uninspired, and represents everything I don't want Mario to be. I haven't always had nice things to say about this game. It once represented the pinnacle of Mario's transformation into bland safety. A set of levels floating in an otherworldly ether somewhere with nothing to thread them together besides the vague threat of a Bowser kidnapping. The more I thought about it, the more I began to associate this disappointment with coarse, clear Mario games as a style, and started to resent the games which were modeled like it. I started to associate the somewhat narrow scope of these games with a lack of ambition or passion, especially compared to the Mario games I grew up with. In a way, every Mario video since 64 has been leading up to this moment where I tear my least favorite 3D Mario to shreds. I've thought about how I'd structure the video, when I'd get around to it, what people would say to me. I even planted little hints about how much I disliked the game throughout the videos. I was ready for the long haul. I was ready for people to finally realize they'd had enough of my hot takes and run me off the internet already. Cancel me, Mario fans. Funny enough, I don't think I can make that video anymore. After playing the newly released Switch port, being able to play with my friends thanks to the added functioning online mode, the speed increase in mid-air roll maneuver making the snappy level pacing even snappier, thinking about it with the context of Odyssey's release and the future of Mario as a franchise, I've garnered a newfound appreciation for it. And they say people can't change. Super Mario 3D Land is a cute little prototype for what a 2D Mario game would actually look like in 3D if it were transferred more directly. Many of its levels play with perspective in order to combat the problem previous Mario games had with camera control. Some levels would be a continuous descent, meaning you'd be able to see the rest of the level at all times. Others would place the camera on the side, mimicking a 2D game. Some would hang overhead, some would twist around a focal point. Whatever the case, this fixed camera was essential in allowing the player to focus purely on the platforming, no wrestling with the camera. Placing secrets in 2 dimensions was a lot easier. Screen space was limited, so all you really had to do was hide them outside of the player's immediate view. Force people to platform outside the box, as it were. 3D Mario games since then have all had some level of camera control, meaning that you could often just have a look around and immediately spot those secrets. 3D Land doesn't struggle with this, and its smaller scope means that each level only takes a few minutes. Each of them have a mechanical theme that they follow throughout. Moving platforms and water geysers, jump switch platforms, tight ropes, beat blocks, spike cylinders. Dealing with 1 or 2 ideas that escalate in challenge and intensity every level crafts a certain mechanical rhythm, which makes 3D Land a fairly fun time waster. But 3D Land was only ever a fun distraction when compared to the other Mario games I was more familiar with. Its visual theming was evocative of past Mario titles, especially the new Super Mario games, and it took a lot of inspiration from Mario 3. There's something about the green, blocky levels that kind of rub me the wrong way, and though there are notable exceptions, it's hard to pinpoint anything which sets it apart from the more general, bland idea of what Mario looks like that exists in our collective unconscious. Let me once again reiterate that Mario is rarely boring to play. 3D Land is a great way to pass the time, but I'd be lying if I said it felt like it had its own identity. Then came Super Mario 3D World, for all intents and purposes, its sequel. We can argue semantics all the livelong day, but I think we can at least acknowledge that it took heavy inspiration from 3D Land conceptually. This did not help its case, in my eyes. At the time, I thought this was the direction Mario was headed in. We had gotten so many games which had been built like classic Mario titles. Every new Super Mario Bros. Game, Galaxy 2, 3D Land, and now 3D World. One concerning trend among these titles was their relative lack of originality. Sure, they were bustling with new gameplay ideas, but they weren't exactly bursting at the seams with unique premises. In every single game I just listed, the premise is that Bowser kidnaps Princess Peach in a slightly recolored variant of the Mushroom Kingdom. Well, sorry. He kidnaps the Sprixies in 3D World. Very different. I wasn't really sure if I was concerned with the idea that Mario would be returning to a more traditional, linear style of level design. I mean, I do have a fondness for Super Mario Bros. 2 and New Super Mario Bros. I guess it isn't so bad to see something like that in 3D. At the time, though, it was harder for me to separate the feelings of disappointment I had towards the lack of inspired aesthetic direction from the much more obvious shift in mechanical structure. I sorta assumed the two were one and the same, that one naturally followed the other. Don't ask me how I came to this conclusion when so many of my favorite games are essentially 2D platformers. I just wanted to see the same energy that had accompanied games like Sunshine and Galaxy. New settings, conflicts, anything that wasn't the Bowser and Mushroom Land trite. I thought the future of Mario would be this forever, doomed to be remembered only for its level design chops ad infinitum. Then, Super Mario Odyssey came out. I felt extremely validated by this release. A Mario game with creative new locations, races, bosses. It was the follow-up Mario game that I had always dreamt of. It proved to me that story can and does matter in Mario games, much to the chagrin of my commenters. The entire adventure was modeled after a road trip. Bowser was traveling around the world, stealing prized national items for his wedding on the moon. His minions were Irish wedding planner rabbits, chasing Mario around as he soaked in the new sights and sounds. Tell me, would Odyssey be nearly as charming or memorable without stuff like this? Could you really tell me with a straight face that this shouldn't matter to people? That stuff like this is simply superfluous? Surely I was just nitpicking about these old games, right? All that matters in a Mario game is the gameplay. I must be going crazy for wanting a little bit more than that. Odyssey proved that notion wrong. All of my favorite Mario games are memorable platforming adventures, not a collection of level gimmicks. But with that release came a revelation. Mario wasn't heading in an unoriginal direction. Clearly, it still has some pep in its step. It's still a series willing to surprise. So was my problem ever actually with the type of game 3D World was? With that epiphany came a re-evaluation of what had come before. Chiefly, my opinion of 3D World softened a bit. I'd still maintain it was the weakest entry, but since it was no longer a signpost for the future of the series, nor was it the latest 3D Mario game, I'd stopped beating that drum. Nintendo officially came out and classified the two types of 3D Mario game, and I was content in acknowledging that 3D World was a perfectly fine, course-clear Mario. After playing the Switch port, I'd say I was even a little wrong in saying the game was simply fine. 3D World honestly does a lot more than I used to give it credit for, and though it isn't exactly my favorite 3D Mario game, I no longer feel confident calling it the worst. With the release of the Switch port, I 100% completed the game in a few days, and was already willing to do it again shortly after. Every single time I've played this game, my appreciation for it has grown, and I think a large part of that has to do with the pacing. 3D World's levels are short, contained bursts of platforming. Spending more than a few minutes in a level is pretty uncommon. You don't get spit back out into a hub world, nor do you enter the same course twice for another mission. Each level is one and done. It has its own set of challenges to overcome and secrets to find. Not only does this lead to more levels overall, the scope of them makes it far more appealing to replay. The Galaxy games were a bit slower, a bit more drawn out. Galaxy benefited from this pacing a lot with its more open levels, where I think Galaxy 2 suffered a bit. If 3D World's levels weren't all threaded together by a set of solid ideas, I don't think the game would be as addicting. Chain Link Charge plays to the strengths of the catsuit. I think this is one of Mario's best power-ups, allowing players to climb up walls to discover secrets. There aren't many levels that explicitly test the suit, though. So Chain Link Charge comes later in the game, when players will have had time to come to grips with its strengths. Here you need to avoid chain link fences, climb up them, dive through them, around them. Everything in this level revolves around the catsuit. Climbing up an ascending fence for a green star, using a cat switch to raise a platform to a green star, it forces you to use the power-up in ways you might not have considered before. This is the secret of 3D World's level design. See, you could say that the early game is far too easy, and if you're just trying to make it to the end, you'd be right. But each level has a set of stamps and green stars which offer advanced challenges and keep the player engaged in even the first few levels. Super Bell Hill is the first level. It's not going to be all that challenging. It's mostly focused on introducing the player to the basics of the catsuit and clear pipes. The first green star forces you to use one of the clear pipe junctions, the second green star forces you to come to grips with the controls and catch this bunny, and the third green star requires the Mega Mushroom, which is not visible to the player unless they climb up the wall or trees surrounding it with the catsuit. Even when the game isn't difficult, it's asking you to engage with all facets of it. You have to try your best to hang on to the power-ups it gives you and ask yourself what the mechanical theme of the level is in order to suss out those secrets. And even then, there are little hidden bonus rooms with a bunch of coins or even warps to future worlds if you're really willing to poke around outside the box. A level like Conch Door Canyon is probably going to have several green stars which involve the conch doors. The entire level is built around them, so that only makes sense. The first green star is there to incentivize you to grab the catsuit, because that is the easiest way to dispatch the conch doors. The next two green stars, though, are accessed with these enemies. One of them breaks open a block, and the other is harassing Captain Toad. You have to kill one and not the other, teaching you that sometimes killing everything in sight isn't the most ideal strategy. If you aren't careful, some secrets will be inaccessible to you, and you'll need to restart the level. Again, every single level has this exact same rhythm, dealing with a new set of enemies, gimmicks, and power-ups that completely change what you're being asked to do. The rate at which new ideas are being thrown at the player is 5 times the rate of something like Galaxy 2, and it's probably why I've always had a hard time putting it down. This is especially true when the base game starts to ramp up in challenge, because it means that the optional collectibles start asking even more of you. Cakewalk Flip is one of my favorite levels in any Mario game. It's got the dessert theming, which is a really great fit for a level which wants you to use the double cherry power-up. It's primarily built around the flip switch panels, where a single jump will flip the platform below you. Piranha plants and laser robots are thrown on top of this, preying on the player's potential panic. I think we all know what we're prone to do when an enemy or obstacle is about to hit us. We jump. This level forces you to keep that panic in check, and it's a moderate challenge when you're just looking to reach the flagpole. But if you're going for the green stars and stamp, you'll have to deal with all of this and not make a single mistake the entire level. The double cherry is yet another genius power-up. On paper, it seems like you gain an extra set of lives. You can send one of your clones into a set of Goombas or something and lose nothing from the exchange. The true genius of the double cherry, though, is that every level it appears in requires you to keep these clones alive, which turns this once useful power-up into a handicap. Not only do you need to avoid the piranha plants and lasers surrounding these flip switch panels, you need to collect the green stars along the way, while keeping your clones alive until the very end of the level. This final green star is one of my favorites. Here, there's a set of flip switch panels, a laser robot in the middle, and a set of 8 green star coins. Similar to red coins, you have to collect all 8 coins to spawn the green star. What you're being asked to do here is control 2 characters under the gun of a timer with a floor laser constantly shooting at you. If you panic, you're dead, and if you take your sweet time, you'll miss out on the green star. I think it's this rigid structure which lends 3D World its fantastic pacing, because not all of its levels even feature particularly challenging platforming. Sunshine Beach is just an explorable little diorama. You find the 5 key coins and ride Plessy to the end. The green stars are hidden throughout the beach along with the key coins, so it's a level about exploring a beach. Hands-on Hall is basically a feudal Japan ghost house, where you open sliding doors, disguise yourself as a Goomba, and search for secrets. It's not just the platforming that makes these levels fun to play through, it's that each level asks you to engage with the fullest extent of its ideas, and then move on to the next. And if one idea is a bit underdeveloped in the early game, there's sure to be a sequel of sorts later in the game. The Bowser Express is a more challenging sequel to the Bullet Bill Express, using many of the same core ideas, but demanding far more from you. Bowser's Bob-omb Brigade is a sequel to Bowser's Bullet Bill Brigade. Broken Boiling Blue Belt is a sequel to Boiling Blue Bully Belt. I'm surprised I got through that take on my first try. My god, try saying those 5 times fast. A lot of the special world is composed of old levels, but with a substantial spin that makes them a lot more interesting than the Comet Medals ever were. They changed the objective of the level to be more challenging. They put you under a very strict timer. They remove platforms, remove power-ups, add more annoying enemies. Either an idea is fleshed out in its entirety in a single level, or it's a recurring theme across a set of levels, and it makes for a consistently enjoyable journey from beginning to end with very little downtime. Though it isn't all on the strength of the level design, it's also down to how its seemingly more limited control scheme works for its stripped-down scope. Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Odyssey have sandbox level design where you're encouraged to explore for collectibles. Since there isn't a ton of core platforming challenge, it's really important to give Mario a diverse moveset that's fun to play around with. For a long time, I criticized 3D World's controls. You can only move in 8 directions, the triple jump was axed, and in general, the joy of moving Mario around wasn't quite there. It worked fine for what the game was, but it made me miss the more expressive moveset. However, I've come to understand that giving Mario less to work with was kind of a necessary evil. 8-directional movement doesn't matter much because these aren't sandbox levels. They're often open hallways with platforms in them. You kinda need to have a really good idea of where you're going to land from a jump, and in a game like this, that's far more important than being able to pull off insane tricks. Freedom of control has sort of been substituted by the ability to play as 4 characters anyway. I don't know that I realized it at the time, but having 4 playable characters with their own strengths and weaknesses is something that no other Mario game has going for it, besides the game which obviously inspired it. Mario is the balanced, expected playstyle, sure, but the other 3 are a different rendition of that base moveset. Luigi can jump the highest, but he doesn't stop on a dime. He's a bit more slippery. Toad's jump is the weakest, but he has the fastest movement speed by far. In the Switch port, where every character's movement speed is increased by 30%, Toad might as well be Sonic the Hedgehog. Peach is the slowest, but she has a mid-air glide which gives her the longest air time of any character. I think it's maybe understated just how much the ability to change characters adds to repeat playthroughs. Some levels really benefit from Toad's speed, so using him can be a lot of fun when you're more familiar with the game. Peach won't be ripping through levels, but she can make some of the harder secrets easier to obtain. Luigi might be a slippery bastard, but with the added mid-air roll maneuver in the Switch port especially, his jump height can completely bypass the need for a catsuit power-up in many instances. These aren't mere palette swaps, they often completely change how you engage with a level, and it makes the game so much more fun to replay. And that's just the single player. Now wait just a minute, we're not talking about the online multiplayer yet. You need protection. And today's sponsor, NordVPN, is happy to be your shield. With NordVPN, all of your internet data will be safe and sound, even from Nord themselves. Your private data will remain yours. Not only will you be protected, you'll be opening up the entire internet, gaining access to hundreds of streaming sites which would otherwise be blocked in your region. Best of all, it's all achievable with a single click. One press of the finger, and you can live anywhere in the world as far as your internet connection is concerned. If you're interested in freeing yourself from internet restrictions, consider going to nordvpn.com/KingK and using the promo code KingK to get a huge discount on a 2-year plan. That's nordvpn.com/KingK using the promo code KingK to get a huge discount on a 2-year plan. Now that you've donned the proper protection, let's talk multiplayer. I did not count multiplayer as one of 3D World's strong suits, because I physically could not play it I did not have enough friends close to me that were interested in playing a Mario game. Plain and simple. I had a bunch of online friends who wanted to, but alas, Nintendo did not include online multiplayer. I think it's more than fair of me to say that multiplayer wasn't much of a pro in the original Wii U version when numerous other multiplayer games at the time had online, including Nintendo's own Mario Kart 8 and Super Smash Bros. If Nintendo weren't gonna let me play with friends, why should I place value in that part of the game? They've literally prevented me from partaking in it. The Switch port, in a move that honestly still baffles me, added online co-op. And it doesn't suck. Your mileage may vary on this one, but playing with 3 other friends all across the world and streaming it to Twitch, the connection was about as good as you'd expect from basically any other online multiplayer game, meaning that I would finally be able to experience the other side to 3D World's coin. It's utterly chaotic madness. Remember Chain Link Charge? In single player, this level is pretty simple. Just keep your catsuit, avoid the fences, collect the green stars, and stamp. You're done. It is not like this with friends. Not even remotely. With friends, this level is a fucking nightmare. You're on a narrow strip of land during an autoscroller, and players can pick up each other and throw them. Not only are you all vying for space on a tiny strip of land, that also means there's no place to escape from that one friend fighting to throw you to the wolves. All of a sudden, this once simple level turns into a mess, where all 4 players are scrambling to collect everything while needing to keep constantly on the move for fear of being chucked off the side of the level. Every single level partakes in this hellish transformation. Switchboard falls, step on the arrows to move the platform back and forth, hit the blocks to switch rails, and avoid the wigglers along the way. Fairly straightforward, a bit tough to nab some of those collectibles, but pretty doable solo. Add friends, and now everyone is once again fighting for space on moving platforms with bottomless pits below them. Everyone has to stand on the correct arrow or the platform won't move, and it's very possible that the platform will move ahead with one of the players leaving everyone else behind. It took my friends and I a solid half hour to nab everything in this level.
I can control these with my hand?
Twin! We have to play the level again!
Christ, why?
At the time, I wanted to strangle them, but that's just part of the charm. It isn't necessarily complete anarchy. At the end of each level, players are ranked based on the points they gathered throughout the level. More points are awarded for actions that will benefit everyone, like grabbing green stars and stamps, with the caveat being that the points are only awarded to the person who physically grabs the collectible. Though this introduces an element of competition, it means that the reward is only achievable if everyone is at least trying to make it to the end and grab all of the collectibles. That elusive crown is merely a guidepost to make sure players don't descend into complete madness. All it does is promote a bit of tomfoolery every now and then. This is a calculated chaos, an energy that makes another playthrough feel like a completely different game, like you've switched on ultra hard mode and you get to share those heightened emotions with your friends. In the past, I always viewed multiplayer as the true way to play 3D World, but that no longer seems entirely accurate. Instead, it's more like an alternate playstyle. Both single and multiplayer have their moods which can coexist, elevating the core game's sense of replayability. The Switch port has only added to this chaos, allowing every player to control the touchscreen elements at the same time and adding multiplayer to the Captain Toad levels, removing those awkward segments in the Wii U version where you'd just be watching the player with the gamepad solve Captain Toad puzzles. Both of these ideas sound awful, honestly. Letting everyone control the touchscreen gimmicks is extremely chaotic, but at the end of the day, finishing the level won't happen unless there's some level of teamwork. For as much fun as you can have wiggling your pointer finger around and dicking over your friends, there's a clock ticking in the top right corner, and you all need to finish eventually. It's the same with Captain Toad. These levels clearly weren't built to be played with multiple players, and especially weren't built so that every player could control the camera at the same time. But that chaotic element transforms even the relatively simple Captain Toad puzzles into a mad dash to get the most screen stars, while that one asshole is spinning the camera around the entire time. This other side to the game is a really big deal. It's a completely fresh way to experience old levels, and it's a crime that a ton of people, including myself, never got to toy around with it on the Wii U. It's no small wonder I always looked down on this game. I was only ever witnessing one end of the spectrum. Adding online might seem like a small thing, but it allowed me to finally engage with everything that makes this game great, as opposed to only its bare essentials. Now I'm going to talk about some stuff that only I seem to care about in these games. A lot of the comments on my Galaxy 2 video have implied that story doesn't matter in Mario games. And if your definition of a story is a lot of cutscenes, then yeah, I agree. I don't think that belongs in a Mario game. But if you define it simply as the context which informs your gameplay, the events which allow the game to happen at all, you know, what a story is, then I'd say Mario should at least be trying. Super Mario Odyssey, I think, has an excellent Mario story. It's not because it has a lot of cutscenes or thematic messages. It's just a memorable premise to surround the gameplay. If you were to remove the elements of the road trip, the impending wedding crash, the title's allusion to the actual Odyssey by which Mario travels through a strange set of locations with bizarre creatures, I don't think it would be nearly as charming of a Mario game. Initially, I was very disappointed with the premise 3D World was running with. Bowser kidnaps some fairies called Sprixies, and you run after him. You do enter a strange new world, seemingly, but there's very little beyond that. I still mostly agree with this. Given how many references there are to Mario 2, both literal and thematic, like traveling into a weird new world through a clear pipe rabbit hole, I thought this would have been a great time to reintroduce Wart as a villain, a character who has not gotten nearly enough love. Or maybe we could shine some light on the Mario Land games and make Wario the villain. Hell, throw Waluigi in there with him, why not? And as sick as I was of the Koopalings, they've never really been tried in a 3D game, and would have been pretty interesting. A lot cooler than Boom Boom and Pom Pom. Do you see what I mean here? Something about this just seems very underwhelming. Despite its problems, I once again feel like I've kind of been selling it a bit short. The soundtrack is inspired by big band pieces. Trombones, trumpets, huge drums, violins, I think there's a fucking accordion in there somewhere. Catchy jazz pieces that fit Mario like a glove, and sets itself apart from his more standard musical motifs. It really enhances the introduction of the Histocrat, one of my new favorite Mario bosses. It's pretty easy, just climb up the snake and cat dive onto his head, but he's got such a cool design, and that backing track is catchier than all get out. Plus, from one king to another, you gotta respect royalty. Speaking of, Bowser's fights in the game are fantastic. It's probably one of my favorite Bowser boss themes next to Galaxy, and I have mad respect for his big purple convertible. His final showdown really takes the cake. The Great Tower Showdown, the music, Catsuit Bowser, incorporating the double cherry, the mad rush up this huge tower during a rainstorm, they really did not have to go this hard, but they did. Yeah, it's a bit easy, it's not even really a fight, but it's still probably a contender for my favorite final Bowser encounter. I really love the circus levels. Flashing, colorful lights, music that leans hard into the jazz. There's more than enough here separating itself from the usual Mario ilk. Enough to where 3D World's identity is at least visible. There are a few levels which are modeled after sweets and desserts, the feudal Japan Boo House I mentioned previously, a few cheeky references to Mario Galaxy that I definitely appreciate. Also, can we just marvel at how great it is that Rosalina is an unlockable character? You can play as Rosalina in a core Mario platformer. I think that's pretty self-evidently rad. I like how Bowser fakes you out at the end. The final fight against him's alright, but it kinda bothered me how standard it all was. Suddenly he takes all the Sprixies and now you're in Bowser Land, basically his own amusement park a la Eggman Land. Again, this is something they didn't have to do. They don't have to do any of this stuff. There doesn't have to be a unique soundtrack, or cool visual themes, or an interesting premise. None of that is required. You aren't required to push outside your comfort zone and try something new, but it is worth something, right? 3D World isn't extraordinary, but it's certainly worth much more than I ever gave it credit for. I get a lot of people asking me why I make Learning to Love. Why do I change my mind so often? What's the point in making a fuss about the fact that my opinion has changed? The fact of the matter is that everyone changes. Your impressions won't necessarily line up with your more solidified thoughts, and your 23-year-old self might not agree with your 17-year-old self. I was a teenager when I played 3D World, and throughout the years, I've been trying to work out what I like and dislike about Mario. I used to just think Mario was fun, video games were fun, and that was that. Nothing else to it. But as I started making these videos, writing out my thoughts, trying to understand why I have them and what they mean, it meant a re-evaluation of what video games actually mean to me. Mario is not excluded from that. At some point, I had landed on the idea that I just straight up prefer Collectathon Mario, and that Course Clear isn't for me. I clearly don't like point A to point B challenge-based Mario games. I like the more immersive, memorable ones. While there might be a kernel of truth to that, it is also the case that Galaxy is my favorite Mario game. While I do believe that Galaxy attempts to mix the two approaches, it does lean a little more into Course Clear than Collectathon. Super Mario 3D World simply leans harder. What it took for me to change my mind was a shift in mindset from when I was younger. Mario is a balance of many things for me. It's an expertly designed platformer for sure, but it really has to understand what it's trying to be. Super Mario Odyssey is a collectathon, maybe even my favorite Mario collectathon with the most potential, and yet it so often tries to be a course clear game in its bonus rooms, as if it's too afraid to embrace its collectathon roots. Galaxy 2 is a sequel to a game which incorporated elements of both, and yet it seems intent on leaning hard in a course-clear direction without shedding its collectathon skin the way 3D World does. These games need to justify their existence through avenues other than just their level design, because Mario isn't that novel anymore. Hundreds upon hundreds of platformers exist now, all of them inspired by Mario, but which offer something wholly unique. Mario can't thrive on just being a solid platformer anymore because it's no longer a genre pioneer. We're past those days. I think it can and should strive to offer something only Mario can. Whatever form that takes, I'm game. A delightful vacation on a tropical island, an epic quest into the uncharted reaches of outer space, a road trip through an assortment of strange locations, and yes, even a jaunt through a weird clear pipe dimension with catsuits, Sprixies, and circuses. 3D World certainly could have tried a little harder to distinguish itself. It falls back on a lot of tried and true tropes, but compared to Galaxy 2, which I don't think tried at all to distinguish itself in that way, I find it much more impressive and worthwhile. Super Mario 3D World is a really good Mario game. That's not what I would have said when I was 17, or even when I was 20, but it's what I'm saying now. And in this current moment, this current now, isn't that all that really matters?